In early January 2025, Southern California and the city of Los Angeles experienced the most destructive and deadly wildfires in the history of Los Angeles County. The Palisades and Eaton fires tore through residential neighborhoods and local business centers, destroying nearly 40,000 acres of land and burning up billions upon billions of US dollars in infrastructure. Whether it was the foothills along the San Gabriel Mountains or the beaches along the Pacific Coast Highway, the wildfires ran rampant, making international news and forcing thousands of everyday people to evacuate their homes. Some folks lost all of their earthly possessions. Others lost their lives. It was a natural disaster unlike any other in the history of Los Angeles, but it certainly wasn't the first to wreak havoc in the western United States. Wildfires have been a critical component to life in the American West, whether it be their crucial role for sustaining indigenous communities or their apocalyptic effect on westward expansion. The burns and blazes of U.S. history have shaped our understanding of survival and society during the development of the country at large. To better understand these cataclysmic events and why not all fires are created equal, here's a deeper dive, exploring the age-old question: how did we navigate wildfires during the era that was the Old West? The threat of wildfire loomed constantly across America's western territories, with countless communities experiencing catastrophic blazes that transformed their buildings into smoldering ruins. Communities repeatedly rebuilt from the ashes until residents learned to construct with fire-resistant materials, such as adobe and brick. Yet these urban conflagrations, despite their destruction, paled in comparison to the massive infernos that consumed the endless grasslands. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the westward newcomers discovered expansive prairies covered in vegetation that reached heights equal to an adult human. These lands were swept by constant, unimpeded wind gusts that roared across the level terrain, creating ideal conditions for wildfires. When dry conditions combined with powerful winds, these grassland infernos advanced at incredible velocities. Contemporary descriptions revealed that even horseback riders at full gallop struggled to outrace the advancing flames. These sweeping conflagrations existed long before European settlement. The prairies experienced regular burning cycles, with flames ignited by various sources, including lightning storms, Native Americans, and the campfires of early traders. These massive burns continued their destructive march for extended periods, sometimes lasting several weeks, until moisture or substantial waterways finally halted their advance. In their wake remained a blackened landscape, stripped of vegetation. The arrival of pioneer families intensified fire-related dangers. Many newcomers, lacking experience with prairie conditions, accidentally triggered devastating burns. These immense conflagrations became seasonal events, typically occurring during spring and autumn months. Particularly severe autumn blazes occasionally consumed so much vegetation that the following spring's fire risk diminished considerably. However, most settlers simply anticipated and prepared for these recurring disasters regardless. The raw intensity of these prairie infernos inspired both wonder and dread. Their tremendous force, enhanced by abundant fuel and persistent winds, represented one of the most daunting obstacles pioneers encounter while attempting to establish themselves in the untamed Western territories. In the rugged days of the Old West, fighting these fires was a communal effort, often relying on the resourcefulness of teamwork of local residents. Towns frequently battled blazes using bucket brigades, lines of volunteers who passed water-filled buckets hand to hand toward the flames. Neighbors contributed in various ways, either by joining the brigade or donating buckets, and sometimes both. In large towns and cities, individuals would label their buckets with their names and addresses to ensure that they could reclaim them after the fire was extinguished. Some towns adopted simple preventative measures, such as placing large barrels on rooftops to collect rainwater. In the event of a fire, these barrels could be broken open to release water across the flames. Despite such strategies, though, many fires grew beyond the ability to control them. When a blaze became too large or destructive, the focus often shifted to containing the fire to prevent its spread. In the worst cases, evacuation became the only viable option. For particularly massive firestorms, the available technology, the aforementioned buckets, and when possible, hoses connected to pumps, was often insufficient to save buildings already consumed by flames. The concept of organized fire departments, as we know them today, was rare in the Old West towns. Instead, firefighting largely depended on the collective efforts of the townspeople. Any organized groups that did exist were typically private, self-funded, and operated by volunteers. Police officers, too, often served double duty as firefighters when the need arose, reinforcing the all-hands-on-deck approach that characterized firefighting efforts during this era. The limitations of bucket brigades became increasingly apparent as settlements expanded. Their ineffectiveness spurred innovations in firefighting methodology, including the establishment of specialized hose teams equipped with water delivery systems. A significant advancement occurred when 23 volunteers formed the Relief Hook and Ladder Fire Company No. 1 in Canyon City, Colorado in 1879. This group utilized improved equipment such as mechanical pumps and hose systems, substantially enhancing their emergency response. While Western territories were developing basic firefighting infrastructure, more sophisticated systems already functioned in established eastern and midwestern metro areas. These regions' firehouses evolved into community centers and strengthened social connections amongst emergency responders. Beyond water delivery equipment, firefighters employed specialized tools like bed keys to rapidly disassemble furniture. This practice emerged because beds represented the most significant household investment for many families, making their preservation during fire emergencies a crucial priority. The integration of horses into firefighting operations began in eastern regions during the early 1800s, with horses pulling various firefighting mechanisms. This innovation reached similar Western communities later, exemplified by Canyon City's acquisition of 2 horses, who transported essential equipment, including ladders and hoses, dramatically improving emergency response times. Technological evolution continued as steam-powered machines gradually superseded manual and horse-drawn equipment. This progression coincided with architectural developments that produced increasingly taller, complex structures, demanding more sophisticated firefighting tools. The gold mining community of Cripple Creek, Colorado, experienced catastrophic destruction in 1896 when 2 separate infernos struck within days. The initial blaze, triggered by an overturned gasoline stove, claimed 2 lives and destroyed 8 commercial blocks amid powerful winds. The second conflagration erupted from the Portland Hotel's kitchen, spreading rapidly despite aggressive countermeasures, including explosive-created fire breaks. These disasters left 6,000 residents without shelter. Following these devastating events, Cripple Creek authorities prohibited wooden construction, mandating fire-resistant building materials. This exact pattern of destruction, followed by regulatory reform, characterized many Western settlements' development, emphasizing both preventative measures and technological advancement as communities across the Old West expanded. Throughout history, fire served as a fundamental element in the daily existence of North America's indigenous populations, encompassing Native Americans, Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiians. Beyond its basic applications in land clearance and mobility enhancement, fire emerged as a sophisticated environmental management tool. These communities wielded flame to orchestrate ecological balance, influencing both flora and fauna distributions while preventing catastrophic wildfire events. Fire ultimately functioned as a cornerstone of indigenous environmental stewardship and cultural preservation. The method, termed cultural burning, encompassed deliberate, controlled ignitions designed to achieve specific ecological and societal goals. These carefully managed burns enhanced vegetation health, expanded access to sustenance and ceremonial materials, and regulated wildlife populations. Tribe members, serving as ecologists and firefighters, characterized fire as environmental medicine. The 20th century witnessed significant disruption of these traditional practices through widespread implementation of fire suppression policies. Government land management agencies enforced universal fire prevention strategies, disregarding centuries-old indigenous burning traditions. Regional variations in fire management emerged across different territories. Eastern indigenous communities employed controlled burns to cultivate oak and chestnut forests, ensuring reliable nut harvests. Midwestern peoples utilized fire to transform dense grasslands into grazing territories. In the Great Lakes Territory, the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore folk described how controlled burns enhanced wildlife habitats, stimulated blueberry production, and managed vegetation density. For Anishinaabe communities, these burning practices became deeply interwoven with their cultural identity and environmental philosophy. Northern Great Plains tribes implemented fire management on an expansive scale, particularly during bison hunts. Strategic burning helped direct vast herds towards desired locations, facilitating more efficient hunting practices. These communities also employed fire as a tool for harvesting grasshoppers, which provided an important nutritional resource. The Lakota people of South Dakota's Black Hills employed controlled burning techniques for multiple objectives. Their strategic fires eliminated vegetation around settlements, reducing both wildfire risks and potential enemy concealment. These burns enhanced conditions for horse grazing while fostering medicinal plant growth. Up in the Northern Rockies, the Salish tribes developed similar fire management practices over millennia. Their controlled burns also mitigated catastrophic fire risks, enhanced food and medicinal plant availability, and improved horse pastures. California's indigenous populations shaped their environment through millennia of strategic burning as well. Early European arrivals discovered carefully maintained ecosystems, including the fire-managed redwood forests. Evidence of cultural burns remained visible in the local forest tree scarring, revealing long-standing fire management traditions that enhance soil fertility and resilience. Other Western tribes employed targeted burns to promote specific vegetation used in basketry and to create habitats supporting particular bird species. This approach ensured steady access to materials for cultural items, while maintaining crucial biodiversity. Alaska's indigenous fire management practices varied by region and tribe. Certain tribes employed controlled burns to clear forest understory, facilitating hunting and creating barriers for caribou management. Native Hawaiian communities transformed lowland vegetation through controlled burning until approximately 1800. Fire served agricultural purposes, supported crop rotation, and facilitated traditional thatched roofing. While direct historical records remain limited, evidence from soil analysis, European explorers' tales, and paleological research indicated fire's significant role in Hawaiian landscape management. While indigenous fire practices have evolved over time, they remain a powerful symbol of the knowledge and wisdom passed down through generations, attempts to keep the landscapes of America healthy and fruitful. Throughout the era of the Old West, there have been countless conflagrations and wildfires that irreversibly altered the geography and demographics of the American frontier. The Santiago Canyon Fire of 1889 was one of the most devastating wildfires in California's history. It began in Fremont Canyon, near what is now Irvine Lake, and spread rapidly across Orange, Riverside, and San Diego counties during the final days of September. Fueled by extreme drought conditions and powerful Santa Ana winds, the same winds that spurred the Palisades and Eaton fires in 2025, the Santiago Canyon Fire consumed an estimated 300 to 500,000 acres of land. The fire ravaged the diverse landscape, causing immense property damage and disrupting local communities. Thousands of sheep were killed, crops were destroyed, and significant areas of timber and foliage were scorched. The fire was so large and destructive that it was considered the worst fire in California, all the way until 2018. The Great Hinckley Fire of September 1894 was another one of the deadliest wildfires in U.S. history, devastating Pine County, Minnesota. The fire, which consumed over 200,000 acres, was sparked by several small fires that merged into a catastrophic firestorm. Dry conditions, a 2-month drought, and the method of lumber harvesting contributed to the fire's rapid spread. A temperature inversion trapped heat and smoke, creating an intense yet rare weather event, the fire tornado. The fire destroyed 6 towns, including Hinckley, and caused at least 418 fatalities, though the actual death toll may have been even higher. Survivors escaped by fleeing into rivers or aboard trains. The aftermath left over 400 square miles of land scorched. Legendary Union soldier Thomas P. Boston Corbett, the man who killed John Wilkes Booth, is thought to have been one of the fire's victims. However, no Wild West wildfire was as catastrophic or impactful as the Great Fire of 1910. The Great Fire, also known as the Big Burn or Big Blow-Up, was the most extensive conflagration in U.S. history. This unprecedented disaster consumed more than 3 million acres across Montana, Idaho, and Washington, engulfing vast stretches of the northern plains and Mountain West regions in an inferno of historic proportions. The catastrophe reached its pinnacle on August 20th, 1910, when exceptional circumstances aligned. Severe drought conditions merged with hurricane-force winds approaching 70 miles per hour, transforming numerous isolated blazes into an overwhelming inferno. The resulting firestorm generated fire tornadoes that leaped between forest canopies, causing trees to violently combust. These explosive flames surged up mountainous terrain, spawning massive spheres of fire that defied containment efforts. The recently established U.S. Forest Service, founded just 5 years earlier, confronted this unprecedented challenge with determination. The agency deployed 4,000 military personnel to supplement their existing firefighting force. Despite these efforts, the inferno completely obliterated communities, including Wallace, Idaho. The death toll reached 87 individuals, with firefighters accounting for 78 casualties. The blaze generated such dense smoke that it cast shadows across the sky as far east as Boston, Massachusetts. This environmental catastrophe stunned the nation, prompting widespread debate about wildfire prevention capabilities. Critics targeted the Forest Service, suggesting enhanced resources might have prevented such widespread devastation. These concerns prompted congressional action, resulting in doubled funding allocations for the agency's fire prevention initiatives. In response to this catastrophic event, the Forest Service adopted an aggressive fire elimination strategy. This new approach emphasized immediate response to any fire outbreak, requiring expanded personnel, enhanced equipment, and comprehensive training programs to prevent future disasters of similar magnitude. In the aftermath of the 1910 catastrophe, investigations into indigenous light burning practices emerged, though U.S. Forest Service officials dismissed these methods as excessively dangerous. The tragedy transformed public perception of fire into an absolute threat, requiring total elimination. The fallen firefighters achieved heroic status, galvanizing nationwide support for aggressive wildfire suppression strategies. The subsequent Forest Service leadership consisted of 3 chiefs who had personally battled the 1910 Inferno. Their wartime experiences influenced their militant approach to fire control. They expanded forest access through road construction, established surveillance towers, and utilized Great Depression-era Civilian Conservation Corps laborers for firefighting operations. Ferdinand Silcox, one of the many veterans of the 1910 fire, later became the 5th Forest Service chief. He implemented the stringent 10 a.m. directive, mandating containment of all reported fires by mid-morning the following day. Post-World War II advancements enhanced firefighting through military technology transfers, including aerial chemical retardant deployment and satellite surveillance systems. Scientific evidence gradually revealed fire's ecological importance, validating long-held indigenous knowledge about its role in Western forest health. Research demonstrated how naturally occurring fires in remote regions reduced fire fuel accumulation, limiting future fire intensity. This ultimate understanding prompted the Forest Service to incorporate prescribed burning into their management strategies. These evolving perspectives influenced even the legendary Smokey Bear's messaging. The iconic mascot slogan transformed in 2001 from emphasizing universal fire prevention to specifically targeting wildfires, acknowledging the beneficial role of fire in ecosystem maintenance. The Forest Service continued adapting its policies to address emerging challenges from climate shifts to expanding suburban development. This represented a more sophisticated approach to fire management in Western territories, a stark contrast to the black and white attitudes towards fire and firefighting that plagued the frontier in the Old West.